Okay, in this lecture we will learn that how the simple server working, the flow diagram of the simple server. Basically, the flow chart of the simple server is that first we import a socket module, as I told in my last lecture, that how we import the sockets. Then we create a socket object s dot socket is the used to create an object within a socket we have a family number, we have protocol, and we have an others. And third is get local machine and reserve a port for your server. If we want to use HTTP, as in my last lecture I told you that different type of the protocols and different types of the port numbers having different for like HTTP, like SMTP and like others. The next is a bind to the port. When we bind the host name, the address, as any others protocol, as I told in my last lectures, that we use s.bend, and within bend we use a different parameters. Now wait for the client connections. Establish a connection with a client by using s.connect, and the last thing, close the connections. Basically, to write internet server, we use the socket functions available in the socket module to create a socket object. First, I write the socket.socket. A socket object is then used to call other functions to set up a socket server. Now call bend. In the bend, we get a host name and a port. The host name usually contain the strings, and the port number is different of like a HTTP 8000 function to specify a port for your server. Next, call the accept methods to return objects which we give as object. This method waits until a client connects to the port you specified and return a connections object. Okay, in the next lectures we learn that a simple server by using a socket module, and do a practical example on a Python. Let's hope for the next. Now it is time for doing a practical on a Pythons by using a simple server on a Pythons. First of all, we should import a socket, as I told in last lectures. The second step is create object by using a socket.socket, and within the brackets we have two things like a host and a port. In a host we have a socket.get host name. It depends on you. I told you that the host name usually the strings, the port number. Let's consider that 1 2 3 and 4 5. In the next lecture we will develop a simple server by using a port of if we use the HTTP, we have 8000 port number. This is not constant, and it is different for different values. The next, bend method. In bend method we use a host and a port. The next is a listen while this is true, then accept or c.address. Now print a got connection from a ADR. You should print here, then you should c.send. Thank you for connecting. This is the programming for the simple server, but in the next step we will do a practical example on a Python by using a simple server, and we also produce a simple client which also communicate between the simple server and the client, and do practical example on a Python. Okay, now in this lecture we will develop a simple server which send a message to a client by using a Pythons. Okay, go to the internet programming, right click, and create a new Python file, and name it simple server. Okay, let's open the program. And first of all, as I told in my last lecture, that we should import a socket. First of all, we should import a socket. in the second step, we should introduce a host and a port. First of all, initialization of the host. In our case, that local host. Introduce the local host and the port. You consider like 512, like this. This is our port. And in the second step, create object like socket.socket. As I told in my last lecture that how we can create that like this. And within a socket put first the socket that socket dot af underscore the init, the first one which we use here, and comma, and the second thing is socket dot sock underscore, sorry, this is here underscore stream, like this is, as I also told in last lecture that there are two types we used in here. So stream, this is in the next we should bend our port and the host. Okay, well, like first thing is a host and a port. Host and port. Okay, now after bending we should listen, put a listen connection that first I want to print that server is listening at port. Server is listening at port. Which port is like, put value of the port here, like okay. Now we put s.listen like this. Okay, in the listen command, actually we tell the server that how much the client you connect. In this case I put a one client connection, so I put 1. And in the next step, that s dot that accept self, and it is equal to connection of the client and the address of the client. Okay, in the next step, put a connection that print double commas like connection for connection form of the address which contain the string that str of add, or that means the address of the client. Okay, the last step is send message at s dot send. Put the message in here. If you want to delete it in a, like you want to send a message that this is my soul and remain in my braids, lost braids. Okay, that now the second step is dot encoded to convert this message in a binary, like code. Okay, now the last step is a close our connection, that c dot close. Okay, now save our program and let's run this program. That go to in here simple connect and run the program. That you can see that the server is ready and is listening at the port of 512 to like this port. In the next lecture we create a client which receive this message. Okay, next hope for next lecture.